Hello and welcome to the latest video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout as we look ahead to some difficult captaincy decisions in game week 21 with Salah at AFCON, Son at the Asia Cup and Haaland still a doubt. The armband selection is wide open. My name is Joe and joining me to look at the options is Fantasy Football Scout's Deputy Editor Tom Freeman. Tom, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay, thanks, Joe. Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting game week, isn't it? With captaincy up in the air, like you said. Salah Son replacements. I'm seeing a lot of different names popping up for managers out there. A lot to consider with that. And then the added layer is that it's a split game week as well, of course. So we'll only get team news for half of the sides and a few FA Cup replays thrown in as well. So there's loads to consider, isn't there?
Yeah, I was doing FPL General's orders video and podcast yesterday, and he offered a quite good bit of advice. He was saying because it's a split game week, so it's basically the winter break for many teams. They half the teams are playing this coming weekend, then there's a break, then obviously, and then the next half sort of the following weekend. So it's all split there. Yep. We'll get press conference news for this weekend's ones. I mean, I can't say it'll be accurate depending on what the managers say. And then the following weekend, we're going into that blind. So his piece of advice was with your vice captain and your captain, you never know what's going to happen. There's snow in parts of the country at the moment. For example, is have your captain or your vice captain this weekend, your vice, whichever is the other one, the following weekend. So you're covered there in case of eventuality. It also sort of throws up the things around the captaincy of like not captaining someone on the early kickoff on a Saturday, that type of thing, because it can actually be advantageous to have a captaincy and get it out of the way this week, this weekend, and if they've done okay. Yeah. But if they've done terribly, then you know that there's a whole bunch of other captains coming the next weekend. So that for me is...
I think that's really good advice, isn't it? I think that it's because of the way the game week is that no games overlap. So we've actually got two early kickoffs, haven't we? One on each of the Saturdays, which just happens to include Cole Palmer and Saka. Yeah, two of the most popular shouts this week. And then it's going to be difficult for Bowen owners in particular. We're not going to get a press conference. We're probably not going to talk about Bowen that much today with the flag that he's got, and we probably won't know if he's fit going into the deadline either. But so there are a lot of variables, and it's quite complicated. And I'm still not even completely sure who I'm going to captain at the moment. But there's a few ahead of others for sure.
I mean, we'll do a team reveal video this week as well, and our potential captains could already be in our side. They might not because we've got Salah and Son out. I've only got one transfer myself, but it could be that I'm actually bringing in my captain. I don't know. But there are also other options as well, and there's a particular player I want to mention in the forward slots that when we have a look at the fixtures that's coming back, a returning player who could be a good option. Before we get on to that, I just want to remind people to do press that like button. It does help us out. Do subscribe to keep up to date with our latest videos and podcasts. Also, do have a look at fantasyfootballscout.co.uk for the latest members area offers. Any stats we're showing on here, that's all gone from the members area. You can create your own tables like that yourself and have a look at the Rate My Team tool and all those types of things to help you go up your mini leagues. Okay, let's have a look at the fixtures. So these are the fixtures taking place, and I've also got next to that the worst defences over the last 6 matches. Some surprising names at the top, less surprising names, and obviously some familiar faces who are very good defensively. But we'll go through the options first, and we'll sort of see if you've got any sort of captaincies in mind with them. I'm presuming you're not going to captain anyone in the Burnley-Luton game, so we'll sketch over that. No. Although, I've got Alfie Doughty, so you never know. Chelsea against Fulham is where we should stop at because that's a good fixture on paper. However, looking at the worst defences, Fulham are amongst the best. They've only conceded 9 goals in the last 6 matches. And I say only because they've had a couple of clean sheets as well. And also the expected goals conceded is just 9 as well, which 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Only 8 teams have fewer. So they're amongst the better defences there. But Cole Palmer got an 18-point haul last week. He's on penalties. Should be nailed on. He's at home. It's the early kickoff, but does that really matter in this split game week? Cole Palmer's got to be in the reckoning, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's right up there for me with the best options. I think that Fulham are quite an interesting team. My perception is they always seem a bit better and a bit tighter at home at Craven Cottage than away. I think they've conceded a lot of goals away from home this year. They do seem to be a bit open, so that's good. That's in Palmer's favour. Madueke coming back in gives them another threat on the flank, and that might end up pushing Palmer into a bit more central role. He always drifts in anyway, but he might actually start in the middle.
Yep.
And I quite like him for this one. He's probably in my top 2 at the moment, and definitely under consideration.
Yeah, certainly for me. He's had the armband. I don't think he's currently got the armband. He might do. I switched between 2 players, but more of that later. Next up, Newcastle against Manchester City. If Haaland is back, I'm still in my team. I will hand him the armband, but will I know whether he's back or not? Is he likely to be in the starting lineup? Lots of question marks there. The fixture doesn't put me off because look at the worst defence of the last 6 matches. It's Newcastle, and some might say a lot of that was the Liverpool game, but they've been awful. They were awful against Nottingham Forest at home, and they've been awful on the road. They've conceded 15 goals, just 1 clean sheet. Expected goals conceded of 19, so they've been marginally lucky just to concede 15. I mean, to put it in context, Luton are the next worst defence, with expected goals conceded of getting on for 13, and they've conceded 14 with the same amount of clean sheets, just the 1. So I think if you've got Foden, I think that he is an armband contender, I think, for this.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Joe. And I've got Alvarez in my team. And so again, if we don't think Haaland's going to play, Alvarez should benefit from penalties if they were to win one. So that's appealing as well. He's on set pieces. But yeah, Foden looks brilliant at the moment in that central role. I don't think De Bruyne is going to start this one. We're recording this on Tuesday, so a lot can change, but all of the noises coming from Pep and him after the game suggested it would be a bench role.
Yeah.
So Foden looks good. Like 7 of that XG there was probably accumulated in one game for Newcastle at Liverpool. But you just mentioned it, Joe. I think they shipped over 3 XG against Forest in the game before.
Yeah, and they're bad against Spurs. But having said that, even though they comfortably beat Sunderland, that is a big deal in Newcastle. That, even though, they would have, they should have done, there was a gulf between the sides. But
yes,
that might give them that confidence boost to drive them on.
Yeah, I think, it's a good point because they had their first choice back forfeit for that game, didn't they? They played Trippier, Cher, Botman and Byrne, I think it was. So I think St James's Park has got to be a factor as well. I think we've got to consider that. They weren't great against Forest, but prior to that, they had been very tight at home and the poorer performance had been on the road. I'm not currently looking at a City player unless Pep were to come back and say Haaland's going to start, and then that immediately changes. But for now, I'm looking elsewhere, and I just think if you get it depends how you read that Newcastle defence. If you think this is the poor performances is to stay, it's not a blip, and they're going to be weak for this one, then by all means go for it because you're plugging into probably the top one of the best attacks in the league, but if you think they're going to make it a little bit difficult for City, which they can do, then it might be best to look elsewhere.
Next up, Everton against Arsenal. Everton against Aston Villa, I should say.
Yes.
Everton against Arsenal, I might be considering an Arsenal player a bit more. But Aston Villa away to Everton there. I'm sort of happy to own Watkins, but I'm just not looking for the armband there. Everton's defence, I don't know whether they're going to be really good or not. They sort of waned a little bit now, but I just think with Watkins, his assists, I'm not sure I'd get a haul out of this.
Yeah, I think Everton have improved under Dyche, haven't they? Villa, we're not quite as consistent away from home as well, so perfectly happy to own like you, but haven't once considered captaining Watkins this week.
Manchester United against Spurs. I see goals in this game. Richarlison could be a great option. Kulusevski even for the differential, but obviously Richarlison would be in the frame. And for Manchester United, I guess Fernandes is on penalties, but I mean I think there are better options. But nevertheless, some might be tempted to go Richarlison, I think, for the captaincy.
Yeah, it depends how you read United. They haven't been great recently, have they?
No.
But again, it's at Old Trafford. I think if that was at Spurs, I think I'd be giving it a bit more consideration. But I think I'm edging towards a home player this week. And I think if you own, I mean, how is Son Son isn't there. Look, he's a key part of that team. How are they going to respond with him? Probably Richarlison, Johnson, Kulusevski in the wider positions. Lo Celso's got currently flagged, isn't he? So where's that creativity
Werner
coming
could
from?
come straight in.
He could do, couldn't he? Yeah, that's the link at the moment, isn't it? It sounds like it's quite close to being done as well. So I just worry that with no Maddison, potentially no Lo Celso, are they going to go there and score, 2-3 goals? I'm not totally sure about that. No.
Okay, so using sort of FPL General's idea of vice captaining and the captain alternate weekends here to cover yourself. Out of all of this bunch here, my captaincy or vice captaincy, I think based on the fixtures and the person, is Palmer at Chelsea. I think he's the best of this bunch. But that's just one half of the game week. On to the next part. This Saturday, 20th of January, looks really good for the captaincy in terms of Arsenal are away at the moment, warm weather training, at home to Palace. They have to turn it around. We know that they have the potential. Their players have the pedigree. Obviously, Havertz up front. I never want to see that again. That's how, in my head, if I played professional football, that's how I would play. As in, I would get a pass. I'd miss it, obviously. But I would dilly-dally. I wouldn't know what to do. And that's what Havertz. Havertz stopped.
He's overthinking it, isn't he?
And there's so many times I was watching, saying, shoot. And he just didn't. Anyway, so Saka, for me, is a real front runner for this. And I will look at the stats of the personnel, the players in a sec. But for me, I think Saka is a great option. How are you with Arsenal's attack? You glass half full, glass half empty?
Well, I've doubled up. I've got Odegaard as well as Saka in my team, and I haven't timed. Well, I haven't. Yeah, I'm in pretty deep with them, and I haven't timed it great because I bought Odegaard in, and he got the assist at Liverpool and got 8 points, and then they've gone a bit off the boil since then. They're still creating a lot of chances. Yeah. They're just struggling for that last touch and getting it in the net. But do they need another centre forward? Perhaps. I mean, it might improve them, but I do just think they have been a bit unlucky over the last few games. It just hasn't quite fallen for them. But Palace are a good opponent, I think, for them. I seem to recall Saka got 18 points against them last year at home, didn't they? They beat Brentford last time out at Palace, but before that, they were on a really poor run. I think they'd only got...
What you said about unlucky, the stats do show that. In terms of worst defences, in terms of best defences, Arsenal are actually the best. Their expected goals conceded is just over 5. They have, in fact, conceded 7. They've conceded 9. Aston Villa, who are near them, who've conceded 7. But they've conceded 9. So they've been very, very unlucky. They've almost conceded double what they should have done. They kept just 1 clean sheet. So that just shows it's probably that they're on the cusp of doing well. As an aside, it proves that their defence could be a good option this week if you've got Gabriel or Saliba. But yeah, I think I'm currently glass half full on them, and Saka might end up with the armband with Cole Palmer vice captain. It's going to be one of those two so far. But if I was going to make a move for a new forward, I don't have the spaces at the moment. I think the best captain this week is, in fact, Ivan Toney on his return at home for Brentford against Nottingham Forest. And the reason I think that is not just because of his pedigree. He is desperate to play. He has been in training for a long time. He hasn't been, so he's been to America getting training. He's been back with the team getting training. Whenever we've done the team reveal podcasts and videos towards the end of the week, a lot of the update from Brentford is Ivan Toney's training with us, all fine. So he's been ready to go. He's getting that fitness level, and I think he got a haul in a behind closed doors game.
He scored a hat-trick, didn't he, at the weekend, I think.
Everything about this game, especially with Nottingham Forest defence, they've conceded 13 goals, no clean sheets in the last 6. Expected goals conceded is 10. Even with their new manager there, everything about this. But I've got Solanke, Watkins, Haaland. I'm not going to be making a striker move, but I do think if you are, or if you're wildcarding, Ivan Toney captaincy. What do you reckon?
That's the ultimate differential, isn't it?
It's a great move.
Yeah, and I think Forest, they've looked better under Nuno, but I think they'll concede chances away from home, especially. And I don't dislike it. I mean, he's probably going to. I don't think he'll last the full 90, Toney, but he'll probably play 70, 75 minutes, something like that, depending on game state. If it's 1-1 and they need to win, they might keep him on longer, perhaps. But if they're ahead, then I think 70, 75 sounds about right. But I think there's potential. Of course he's on, but he's a great striker, isn't it? It's just whether you think he can hit the ground running. But everything suggests that there's not going to be an adaptation period or anything, because he's been playing a lot of friendlies, scoring a lot of goals. No Mbomo for Brentford, but mate, they're going to be putting a lot of balls into the box, and it's going to be Toney on the end of them, isn't it? So there's no. This is a week. There is no obvious number one, is there? So that's when I think you can get creative, perhaps. And if you can get to Toney easily enough, and you like the idea, it's not a bad shout.
This is one of those few weeks you get in the season where you can captain anyone, because there isn't like a Haaland, a Salah, a Son to dominate the captaincy. So there's going to be very few with an EO over 100%. Although Saka might get there.
I think so.
I don't think there'll be very few players who've got that as well. It's worth pointing out Nottingham Forest, Brentford's opponent, and Crystal Palace have both got very similar expected goals conceded stats, around the 10 mark. Nottingham Forest have conceded 13. Crystal Palace have conceded 10. Importantly, neither have clean sheets. I think so far, and I think looking at the rest of the fixtures, my captaincy is on this Saturday on the 20th. For this segment of the split week. Moving on, Sheffield United against West Ham. Bowen, in my head, was the captain. I was probably going to bring in and captain, but he went off injured. Also, Sheffield United, good. Paqueta was back, assisted Bowen, went off injured. Suddenly, West Ham were a bit pants again.
And it's interesting to see Sheffield United in that place on the table as well, isn't it, Joe, with the Chris Wilder effect? They're definitely improving defensively.
Definitely.
And if Paqueta's out, his injury looked the most concerning at the weekend. Given that Kudus is at the AFCON, I would be happy to play Bowen, but it's going to be a risky captaincy unless we get a solid update anyway, isn't it?
Definitely. For those listening on the podcast, Sheffield United, they're once again, the expected goals conceded is around 9, similar to Nottingham Forest, Crystal Palace, Everton, Manchester United, Fulham as well. Very similar expected goals conceded there, which shows they're not bottom where Newcastle are at the moment, but where Luton are, as you would imagine they would be for a promoted side. Bournemouth against Liverpool, we'll quickly do that. Salah's not there. I think Jota's the best one, but I don't know whether he's going to play. Therefore, I'm not interested in a captain. How about that?
Yeah, I think if you're going to go for Liverpool, it would probably be Trent, because I think there's a bit of uncertainty up front, isn't there? And I'm not sure if this is the fixture to captain Trent, given that Bournemouth have been playing very well recently.
Solanke, former Liverpool player.
I'm not sure if I see a clean sheet there. So this might be again a week to not look at Liverpool for captaincy.
Brighton Wolves, I think Pascal Gross is a good captaincy shout for this one. He did haul against Wolves before last season. I think he would tick along nicely. I think for him, you're going to get at least a return and possibly a haul. which is what you want from a captain, especially on this difficult week.
Yeah, I think he's my top pick to come in for
Yeah.
Son, I think, at the moment. So
Yep.
I'm glad to hear that from a Brighton fan.
Yeah,
that
no, I
you're
think he is. I think he's most
confident.
nailed on. Brighton are one of the few teams, I think it was 4 teams are definitely away for warm weather training somewhere in the Middle East.
Yeah,
And Brighton are one of them.
yeah.
So that'll help them. They'll come back. And they've looked great recently as well. They looked, I mean, they didn't, against West Ham, they look good. Obviously in the cup, they look good against Stoke, but you would imagine that.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of injuries, but the players that are there, Pedro, I think is in the running as well on penalties.
Yeah, I thought you looked really good against West Ham, and I think there's injuries, but there's still a lot of quality in that Brighton team, even without them. And I think that Gross took on a really attacking role in that West Ham game. He was arriving late into the box. He looked really attacking in that one. So, and the chance creation is always there with Gross, isn't it? That isn't a problem. So I like him.
Okay, let's have a look at the just quickly. We reveal, well, I think we both revealed sort of who we're interested in, but these are the stats here, so I'll read them out, and a lot of the names we've already mentioned here, but it's interesting here. If Haaland is back, it just underlines how amazing he is. Expected minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty every 85 minutes. He's had 4 assists and 5 goals. Next is Darwin Núñez. I have owned him briefly, hated every minute of it. His minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty, is 87 minutes. And this is where I start thinking, why am I bothering with expected goal involvement stats?
Because this is only the opportunity. You've got to put the ball in the net, haven't you?
Because Haaland's got 49 points after his last 6 matches he's played. Darwin Núñez only 20, and he's only scored 1 goal to Haaland's 5. So it just shows you the gulf there. And even Haaland's got 4 assists, and he's not even an assist man. And Darwin's got 2. Sorry, and Richarlison's next on this, underlying his potential: 5 starts, 5 goals, and no assists. I do not own, but I do think he is a good captaincy shout. De Bruyne, I don't think he's going to get the minutes, but he's only played 1 match. But I put him in here because his stats are actually really good in that 1 match. His minutes per expected goal involvement in that 1 match were on a par with, Haaland, Darwin Núñez, Richarlison, Alvarez. So who's next on the list? Solanke's here as well at home against Liverpool. I don't think he's captaincy material. And then Jota's also on this list. Once again, I don't know if he's going to get the minutes. And I've highlighted Saka, Palmer. I have highlighted Jota just in case. Saka and Palmer, I think it's between these two. In terms of FPL points, Palmer double Saka's 20 points. Palmer's had 43 in the last 6 matches. But Palmer's had 4 goals to Saka's 1. Palmer's had 2 assists to Saka's 1. Palmer has been overperforming by a couple of goals. Goal involvement. Saka's been underperforming by a couple of goal involvements. Both of them minutes per expected goal involvement, non-penalty, 127 minutes, sort of every sort of game and a bit. These stats say Saka or Palmer, don't they? But which one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm flip-flopping between the two, to be honest. I think in my best team at the moment, I've got it on Palmer, just because I think he's becoming so important for that team. Yeah. And I think that he feels like he can be a real talisman, because I don't think Nkunku's going to be there, is he? Or he's not ready to start games, even if he is fit for that game. Whereas with Saka, I think he's a really good option. I'm just thinking there are a lot of other players in that team, be it Martinelli or Odegaard, or if Gabby Jesus is fit, or Nketiah, that can go. Whereas Palmer just maybe feels a bit more fundamental to that team. But I don't know. I'm going between the two. Okay. They're both probably on penalties, aren't they?
Yeah.
So there's no edge that you can get either way with that.
Both at home.
They're both on set pieces.
Both playing very similar teams in terms of their defences, in that they can be tight, but they can chip some goals on the road. Jota I've mentioned as well, just to say he's had 3 goals, just 4 starts the last 6 matches, but 3 goals and 2 assists. That's 5 returns from 4 starts. Not bad. So I think he is a good option. Isak is here. You imagine he's favoured over Wilson. 2 goals across 5 starts, but he's playing Man City. Pascal Gross we mentioned, and Pedro. Pascal Gross has had a goal and 3 assists and 32 points and a minutes per expected goal involvement non-penalty of 34 minutes. I'll put Pedro in here as well, just underneath him, 170 minutes per expected goal involvement non-penalty. 2 goals, he's on pens and he's got an assist. It's worth noting that Foden was just below this at 172 minutes. I mentioned that stat on the FPL Generals one. I got a comment about that. How does that work out? Because I think he's had 5 attacking returns, but I think I'd done it by non-penalty. Sort of the maths don't seem to add up. I've done it by non-penalty, so I'm presuming that at least one of his assists was involved in a penalty, perhaps. Also, I don't know whether the stats include that. Also, I imagine it's not per 90 minutes. I haven't done it per 90. And so it could be that, matches lasted far longer, 100 minutes, 105 minutes. There was a lot of extra time and maybe he stayed on. I don't know.
Well, this is last 6 matches as well. And Foden's output has really upped in the last couple. But before that, I don't think he was pulling up any trees with his numbers. So that might be it.
Yeah, and there is also that as well. Yeah, you can get that. So it's maybe slightly skewed by having 2 absolutely atrocious XGI matches and then some amazing ones. In there. So, but I did keep double checking that figures because I did want to make sure I got that right. But yeah, Foden is around the level of Pedro in terms of minutes per expected goal involvement. But obviously he's got that all round play with 5 attacking returns in his last 6. Lots of options. Sounds like you and I are similar. It's between Saka and Palmer. I like the split game week thing. I just don't know which one, and it does change every day. If I had Toney, I definitely would, because it would solve the problem about which my captain Saka and Palmer. I just think,
he would absolutely be in the running if I owned him. But I think the problem for me is that Brentford's fixtures aren't great after the Forest game. So it does fit. And I haven't got space like you, Joe. I've got the same front line as you, apart from I've got Alvarez instead of Haaland. So that's very difficult to bring him in. But like you say, if you're on a wild card this week, and some people, I have seen a lot of people playing it, he would absolutely be in that 11.
Yeah, definitely. Excellent. Thanks so much for your time, Tom. We're going to be back with goals imminent this week. Do have a look at that. Have a look. We are also around with our team reveal as well. Watch that. See what our plans are as well. Do remember to press that like button. Do remember to subscribe, and do check out fantasyfootballscout.co.uk for those membership offers as well. Tom, thanks so much for your time. Good luck with your captaincy decision, and good luck with the game week. See you soon.
Cheers, Jake.